Hello, Gareth here, and welcome to this one brush lesson. And today we are going to paint a tree. Now, it may sound easy, but trees are very difficult. And if you can paint a tree well in watercolor, you are very good at watercolor, in my opinion. So here are some pictures of trees. So here's one and some bushes, and here's another one I did, and this one I added a fence, and I think we'll do that today because it looks better, doesn't it? The composition is better. Now, an important point here, you really want gaps in your tree. The more gaps you can get into your tree, the better it will look. If you compare, I think this is better, and I think one of the reasons is because of the gaps. I hope you agree. But you know, it's important to make up your own mind about that. And here's one more, a bit different, but another tree. Okay, so let's begin. So the first thing we want to do is establish the horizon line. So it's roughly about here. And so I'm going to do a light line across the paper. Normally I don't draw this, but just to help you, because I think it's very important, and without this your painting can go very wrong, the composition. So the first thing we're going to do is the sky. Basically this is pure water on my brush, and I'm just going to do this over the sky area very roughly. So it's not perfectly wet, that's very important, and it's only very lightly wet. Next, I'm going to get a very watery mix, and I'm basically just going to do almost like, what kind of shape would you call that? But that kind of shape. It almost looks like a Y. Very simple. And then a little bit here at the bottom. And then I'm going to mix up something a bit stronger. Use my rag. And yeah, I just want to soften it now a bit. So wet it, dry it, and maybe dry a bit more. And just soften this. There we go. Don't want to spend too much time on this, and I probably have. There. And that looks like quite a simple sky. Now I want to suggest grass here. So this needs to be a very watery mix. Luckily I'm using a big pad, so down here below the actual picture itself I can practice. This is like having scrap paper, and I really don't want it to be too strong, but I want that rough brush effect, and I think that will work. So you want to be moving across fairly quickly. Go over areas where there's a big white gap. Ah, that's looking quite nice. So it is a bit irregular, but that's okay. But you don't want a line like that coming down, because that looks a little bit strange. So we want to just get rid of that. And if we can, it'd be nice just to roughly, just very roughly join this ground to the sky, like that. There we go. I might just do a few more marks across. Just a few. You have to be careful. It's easy for this to go wrong. Okay, that's enough. Let's leave it to dry. Now we're going to paint trees in the background here. Now we don't want this to be too strong in tone, and we don't want it to be too light. So our tree in the foreground is maybe going to be about this strong. So we want it weaker than that, so let's add some water. But we also want it stronger than this sky. So although it takes a bit of effort at first getting these tones right, like this, it will become easier and easier, yeah? So that'll be the tone of our background trees, and this will be the tone, hopefully, of our foreground trees. That's the plan. Let's see what happens. So it's going to go across here. Now remember, we want it to be irregular, always. So I might not achieve that, but at least that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. And that's becoming too similar in pattern. So I want to stop that. There we go. It's very important to get this edge looking very rough. This very, very nice rough edge. It makes it look much, much more like a bush or a tree. In fact, these look more like bushes, don't they, really? And I'm going very high there. I'm not sure I really intended to do that, but just we'll go with it. And there we go. I think that's enough. You have to be careful, because if I go into this again, I'll start to make ugly marks that I really, really don't want. So we need to leave that to dry now, and then we're going to come and do this foreground area. Now for the difficult bit, the tree. So I'm going to begin with the tree first, because that really is the difficult thing, and that's where most likely the painting will go wrong. So the important thing about a tree, which took me a long time to learn, and I still haven't learnt it fully yet, is what's going to be the basic shape of your tree. Have you ever realized you've painted a tree and you're not thinking, for example, is it going to be a roundish kind of tree? Is it going to be a bit kind of like, not quite oval, but a bit like that? Or even the opposite, is it going to be like wider at the top? And I bet you've never thought of that, and I don't think of that. In fact, it could even be like this, couldn't it, really? It could be almost ovalish. So you have to realize that trees, there's an enormous variety of tree shapes, and it's very important before you even paint the tree what kind of shape. So I'm gonna go for something like this, but maybe a little bit wider, like that. But like I said before, it's really important to have gaps in it. And even with this, you've got to think, is there going to be a big bit here, then a bit here, then a bit here, and then you can't just add a bit just there. It would look too symmetrical, but something a bit like that. And there's basically our tree shape, and then we'll have our branches like that. It's not brilliant, but it's looking a bit tree-ish. Okay, so now I'll just lift that up so you can see that. Yeah, so now let's paint our tree using this as a reference. So the first thing you want to do is determine how low it's going to be, about here, and then how high it's going to be, about here. That's so important because you can start painting it, make a mistake, and then try and cover it, and then you cover that and you cover that, and before you know it, you've got like something blew up on your picture, and you really don't want that. So determine how high, determine how low, and then we're going to have to work within that. Use our scrap paper. Yep. And we're really trying now to have these gaps. And I think maybe that's almost enough. I'm just adding tiny little bits now, not too many, but just a few tiny bits, and I'm gonna say that's it. Now what we need to do now is use our brush with the hairs together like that, and we're going to use the tip, and we're going to go down like this, and if possible we make it thicker, press down, make it thicker. And that's a bit too strong, so I'll just wipe it out with my finger and soften it. And then we want some branches like that, and some branches there and there. And you shouldn't go over this too much. In fact, I really don't recommend doing that. I'm just adding some shadow below, and I'll blend it in with my finger. But I really don't want to teach you that too soon because that's a bit more advanced, and that will do. I think maybe over here a little bit. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm quite happy with that. It's not as good as I wanted, but it's good enough. And then let's do a bush here and a bush here. Make them look a bit different. And then we're going to have just like a suggestion of grass, because there's this is a bit like a hedge, well, two hedges, a tree, and then some posts, again like this, using the tip of the brush, and try to make them fairly evenly spaced, but obviously getting wider apart as it comes closer. And then this is tricky, going across, the bars going across. Just practice that. And if I have that going behind the tree, maybe like that, and then like this. and obviously this gets thicker as it comes closer towards us. And then maybe we might indicate a few grasses, however you say it. Some grass, that's what I should have said, some grass. I'm darkening this at the bottom, and there we go. Now to add some reflections. So the sun is over here, it's coming across here, and so we've got some reflection there. And here we've got something here and here. And there we go. I might just darken a little bit here. And this one too. And that's pretty good. To be honest, my only regret is I think this tree is too small, so I would have made it bigger. And let's have a go at that. Really, I don't recommend doing this at this stage because it's dried, but I want you to know that that I would have done it bigger, maybe this much bigger, and then try and extend it a little. But I did tell you this happens with trees. Now as you can see, that looks better. So in some ways, although I've made a mistake, hopefully you're learning from my mistake. And I think the most important thing is we do want a nice looking painting, of course, we always want that, but sometimes it's good to destroy the painting in order to learn and to just test, like, is that big enough? And then to take it further, and maybe you realized that it was okay and you made a mistake, but actually the willingness to test something and to take it further will improve your painting. And that's more important than just making one nice painting, because the next painting you do will be more informed by what you've learned, and it will be a better painting. Okay, there we go, we've finished. Another thing that I think is a little bit disappointing is these hedges. They look too much the same and it doesn't look natural. So maybe what I should do is maybe here, should I do maybe a big bush? So please don't be afraid to do this and even destroy it, because it's more important to learn than to make one nice painting. Now that helped join the painting together, and I think this one needs to be a little higher. So normally I wouldn't recommend doing this. Normally I recommend just a one-off, but you do it one time and then that's it. But I really felt like it needed it, and because they're quite dark, I think this needs to be a touch darker. So let's do that. Okay, there we go. And then blend that into this shadow. And there we go. Now we've finished, and I think that's looking better, much better. Okay, thank you for watching. Now please have a go, and happy painting from Gareth. Bye.